Six Nations round one is done, and now it's time to look at where things stand. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. As opening weekends of the Six Nations go, this one was pretty decent. We had, kind of a build-up of quality and tension through the weekend. I think we ended up with the best game at the end, last, which is always nice. It's sometimes it's bad if you kind of end on a kind of a damp squib for the final one, and you got a whole week to wait until, or even 2 weeks if it's a follow week, until the next action as well. But yeah, some brilliant performances and some very exciting games as well. So what we're going to do in this one is we're going to look at the results, talk briefly about each of the games, how they went. Then we're going to look at some of the stats from the weekend and talk about how that leaves teams as well in terms of what might happen for the rest of the tournament for them, or just where they are at the minute, and then finally have a look at the table. So we're going to start with the opening game of the weekend, Friday night's game, which was France 43, Wales 0. So obviously very dominant performance by France. Initially Wales kind of doing not too bad, keeping the French at bay. A lot of people thought that France would just get in there and absolutely destroy them right from the start. But it took a while for France to kind of get in. But then, first of all, at the Sogbe gets in at about 70 minutes or so. And then 5 minutes later, Louis Biel-Biarri gets in as well. And then before halftime, then they had, both of those guys finish off their doubles as well that they got in the game. Second half, then Marchand, Gailleton, and Aldrit had tries as well, just as France kind of blew the score out. Wales, they were okay in defence initially, but France still were just far too skillful for them, and Wales just completely toothless in attack, and that's the big problem with them. Is it wasn't just that they were trying to keep the score down; it was that they weren't offering anything at all going forward, and that's a worry for the rest of the tournament, because you're never going to win a game of rugby if you're not even getting anywhere near the opposition's 22 for the most part. No try threat, and then no kind of pressure when you've got the ball either on the opposition, which means that they're very unlikely to be conceding penalties if you want to go that route and kind of just keep the scoreboard ticking over, score in threes rather than fives and sevens. So definitely a big improvement needed there for Wales. France, we knew coming in, just because, first of all, France are a fantastic team anyway. They've got some amazing players. We had, Ntamack and Dupont back, both missed last year. Ntamack, obviously, with his red card, might, miss a few more games now of this tournament. But, on top of that as well, the two foreign teams in the Champions Cup were Toulouse and Bordeaux. And then, some of the other French teams went pretty okay as well, the likes of Toulon. La Rochelle, a little bit, kind of a mixed bag, but there were, so many quality players performing so well in Europe and in the top 14 as well. We just knew that France were going to come into this one, and any sniff of a chance they were going to score, and it was going to be, a bit of a long evening for Wales and their fans. I think certainly it wasn't as bad as a lot of people were thinking before the game. People were looking at, well, what's the largest margin Wales have ever lost by, etc. But still, it's a heavy defeat, and they were nilled in the game as well. If they got over for one consolation try or something, they'd have something to kind of cling on to and say, okay, well, that was a decent score. Let's have more of that. But didn't get anything like that. But yeah, completely dominant performance by France, and yeah, fairly abject, honestly, by Wales. As I said, especially in attack, were completely toothless and definitely need to improve there. Okay, on to the next game then, and that was Scotland 31, Italy 19. So Scotland get the perfect start. Within a few minutes, they have Rory Darge over the score, and then 5 minutes later, then Hugh Jones gets the first of his hat-trick of tries to, basically put them very comfortable after only 14 minutes. And it looked like, that they were going to kind of just walk away with this. Ben White then gets over like just before the half hour, and they're leading 19 points to, it was 3, right? 19 points to 6, because Tommaso Allen, just before Ben White's try, got a couple of penalties for Italy. And that's what Italy were doing, was they were just, taking their 3 points at that point of the game. They knew Scotland were dominant, but if they could keep in touch, maybe they had a chance. Then into the second half, then another couple of penalties early on, or no, there's one more from Tommaso Allen before halftime. Then he got another one just after halftime to bring them back within a converted try. And Juan Ignacio Brex then intercepts from Russell and goes under the post, converted, and 45 or something odd minutes, and we're tied up at 19 all. But then Scotland, fair play to them, they're able to kind of go again, and Hugh Jones gets over for another couple of tries in the last quarter, 60 and 65 minutes, and that was enough then to see them home in the end. Italy were trying to get themselves a losing bonus point towards the end, but just weren't able to manage it. But Scotland certainly, starting with a bonus point win, denying the opposition any kind of points from the game as well. They'll be absolutely delighted with that. That's as much as anyone could really expect from them in their opening game. A little bit worried about the fact that they let Italy back into the game, but certainly positive that they were able to respond to that and go again and pull away. Italy, won't be happy with the start that they made. They were very passive, I felt, in the opening kind of quarter of the game. Grew into the game as it went on, and they did really well to get themselves back level. Very smart captaincy as well from Lamro to make sure that we're taking their points and just staying in the game on the scoreboard. And then a little bit disappointing then that they weren't able to get themselves a score towards the end to get a losing bonus point that I think their play overall deserved. But decent win for Scotland. Italy, showing some good signs there, but still as well showing that they're not quite up there with the teams that would feel they have a shot at the title. They're a little way off that at the moment. And on this performance, you would think, okay, maybe fourth or fifth is where they might place. Scotland obviously looking to get some, either a title or somewhere in the top 3 overall. On to then the final game of the weekend, and that was Ireland 27, England 22. England started so well. Caden Murley gets over in the corner. Lovely way to kick through for him as well. Just exploiting that Irish defence and the spacing behind. He did really well to finish it too. And so aggressive at the breakdown. Great line speed on the defence. Winning turnovers. Dominating in the air as well in the kind of early exchanges. And looked like they were really bossing the game. Then Ireland starts slowly working their way back into the game. James Gibson Park over for a try about 5 minutes or so before half time. And then Marcus Smith then with a penalty on the stroke of half time to give England a 5-point lead at the break. Into the second half then, Ireland really come out very well. Bundy at key, really great finish for his try. First of all, I think it was Marcus Smith that he just kind of shrugged off in the tackle and then rode another tackle to score in the corner. From there, then I think it was Jack Crowley then comes on for Prendergast at 10. I thought Crowley had great impact from the bench, and there was, for Ireland, there was a lot of good impact from the bench, which we don't normally see, honestly, from them. They have brilliant players on the bench, but they don't generally lift the performance. But this time they did, and that's good to see. It means maybe there is some, more evolving going on in that squad than maybe you would think. But yeah, the likes of Crowley, Sheehan, Conan, all having great impact off the bench. Henshaw as well, who come in as a blood substitution, and then or HIA, and then come back on again in the second half as well. And yeah, most of the bench, doing pretty well in terms of impact. But then Tyg Byrne, and then Dan Sheehan returning to the side from the bench as well. Both of them get tries. So Ireland get the bonus point try. Looking very comfortable in the game at that stage, having come back, but then kind of take their foot off the gas the last 5 minutes, and Tom Curry and then Tommy Freeman in, the last play of the game, getting over for tries to get England a losing bonus point. And, for Ireland, that could be detrimental to them, first of all, because of points difference, because they were winning, fairly comfortably before those tries went over. I think it was 27-10, so the 17-point margin reduced to a 5-point margin in the end. And then the fact that also that England have got a losing bonus point out of the game as well. Just because England lost this one game doesn't mean that they're out of the title race, especially given how close a lot of the other teams are. Ireland could easily lose against Scotland or maybe France, and it could be one of those scenarios where the final table could be 3 teams on 3 wins or something like that, and it's coming down to points difference, that kind of thing, or 3 teams on 4 wins, or something around that, depending on who beats who, that kind of stuff. But yeah, overall, Ireland, certainly, given how things are going early on in the game, would be absolutely delighted with a bonus point win. Ireland looking a lot sharper in attack as well than they did in November, and it's good signs for them, but got to keep it going through the rest of the tournament. England, some good things from them as well. Attack looked good early on. They were causing Ireland issues in defence. Their defence as well, off the line very quickly, hugely competitive at the breakdown, winning turnovers and stuff like that. Ireland's line out much better. We'll talk about that when we come to the stats. But yeah, overall, good win for Ireland, but will be disappointed with those last 5 minutes. Okay, now let's have a look at the stats then. So we'll go down through some of them here. Let me pull them up. So first of all, just to say that for whatever reason, the official website hasn't updated its stats for the weekend. So I just had to go through each of the game stats and collate them myself. Because I didn't want to do this without having any stats at all to talk about, because I like kind of giving some context to stuff. So first of all, we talk about possession. So Scotland top of the table there with 58%, Ireland 51%, France 50%, Wales 50%, England 49%, and Italy 42%. So the 3 winning teams are top there. Obviously Wales kind of joint third with France, but still none of the winning teams had less than 50% of possession. And then territory even more skewed towards the teams that won. Ireland with 58, Scotland 55, France 54, Wales 46, Italy 45, and England 42. And that Ireland-England one is significant as well, because England in the first kind of 30 minutes or so were dominant possession and territory-wise as well. So big turnaround for Ireland in that one. But it just shows, it's a lot easier to win rugby games if you have the ball and you have the ball in the right areas of the field as well. Then onto attacking minutes. So Scotland with the most attacking minutes, 22.8. France next, 20.6. Wales, 20.5. But God knows what they actually did with those minutes, because they weren't threatening tries. Ireland with 19.2, England 18.7, and Italy with 16.6. So, Italy, a team that have been involved in their game to attack more, but with the least attacking minutes. So they'll definitely want to improve that against, when they play Wales next week. Meters carried then, Scotland breaking the 1,000 mark, 1,014.2. Ireland next with 870.2. Wales 792.1, England 717.1, France 677.2, Italy 645.9. So you can look at that. You look at Scotland and Ireland up the top there, but then France, the biggest winners of the weekend with just 677. But they did a lot with those meters. They were very smart, and a lot of it as well is the fact that they weren't under siege for the most part by the Welsh. So it meant that, they didn't have to go from long, like, to get their scores and stuff like that as well. But very efficient with their meters in terms of getting the scores. Next then, kicks and play. England with the most kicks with 38. But then it's the three winners after that. Ireland 31, France 28, Scotland 28, Italy 27, and Wales 26. So people will look at that stats and say, oh, England are kicking too much. And, you have to remember that in the first half, England were dominant in the game for the most part. And a lot of that was on the back of their kicking game. They kicked very smartly. They put up kicks that they could contest. They got people there, and they weren't going up to try and win the ball. They were going up to, or win the ball cleanly, should I say. They were going up to basically slap the ball down on their own side or create havoc on the Irish side, maybe force a knock on. And that was a brilliant tactic from them, but they couldn't keep it going in the second half. And I think Ireland, changed their kicking game in the second half in response and kind of neutralized what England were doing. And Ireland were finding, more kind of space as well. And I think Ireland's kick chase certainly improved in that second 40 as well. And then Crowley coming on too. I think Crowley has, overall kind of a better kicking game out of hand than Prendergast does at this stage in his kind of short career. And that certainly helped Ireland too. And then France and Scotland, I talk about all the time, like they're probably two best attacking teams to watch in the Six Nations, but also they kick a lot of ball, and they do that because kicking the ball creates pictures that they want to see on the field in terms of where the defense that they're facing kind of are on the field and how they're lined up, and potentially gaps to run balls through and stuff like that. And then if you look at the kicking meters, Ireland at the top there with 948, France next with 880.7, England with 814.2, Italy 752.1, Scotland 748.4, and Wales then at the bottom with 619.8. So, Wales kind of struggling with their kicking game, certainly. Scotland was a bit of a surprise because generally, if you look at the last couple of years in the Six Nations, Scotland have, generally been up there towards the top. They've been the team with the longest kicks, or the most meters kicked, should I say. Generally being up there kind of, anywhere between 850 to 1100 meters a game as well when they're kicking. So 748 is a bit low for them. And I'd expect through the tournament that number is probably going to grow. Next, then we're going to look at some defensive stuff. So tackles made. So Italy at the top there with 212. Wales next 185. France then with 181, England 156, Ireland 153, and Scotland with 131. But Scotland, they made Italy, as you see, they made Italy make a lot of tackles, and I think that helped them in terms of when Italy came back there at the start of the second half. Scotland then, tired them out a little bit, I think, and were able to go again in the last quarter. Because of that, because Italy kind of ran out. It really did look like Italy ran out of gas towards the end. Tackle success then, France 93.78 is absolutely amazing. Scotland 89.12, certainly above average. Italy 87.6 and Wales 87.26, kind of around the average you would expect. Along with England at kind of the lower end of the average, 85.71. Then Ireland 82.26 is below average that we expect kind of at this level, but it's kind of within the norms for Ireland. Ireland have a lot of shooters in their defence, and they're all more about kind of disrupting the opposition's flow in attack rather than just trying to nail every tackle. So a lot of it is to do with the fact that Ireland know that there's space out wide against them, and they know that if they're just kind of matching up, hitting their tackles, then the opposition can just put it through the hands and potentially create an overlap out wide and exploit that space. So instead, what they'll do is they'll make their try as best they can. Sometimes you just miss tackles, right? But they're basically trying to make the tackles in the center of the field, and then when it goes out towards the edge, there's kind of that umbrella effect where the guys on the edge, maybe your centers or whoever's kind of 2 or 3 in from the touchline, is going to shoot up and prevent any kind of thoughts of giving a long ball out to the wing, because there's the potential of an intercept. And also, you just got a guy now in your passing line anyway, and straight away then, or a lot of time, that person then will either opt instead to carry a little bit further to try and get beyond that, that rushing defender and give the tackle anyway, or they might look back inside, or they might look to kick, and that's what Ireland are trying to do, is trying to disrupt the opposition, and because of that, it leads to lower tackle success. But luckily for Ireland, they've got a really decent scramble as well. And also, just to give credit to England, because they're down there as well, their scramble was very good against Ireland too. Okay, next then, on to, we're going to look at discipline and ruck speed as well. So first up, penalties conceded. So France, 3 penalties conceded is absolutely amazing. Keeping it that clean is a feat in itself. I think brilliant. If they can do that for the rest of the tournament, I think they're going to end up with a grand slam, because the other teams need to apply more pressure than Wales did and force more penalties from them. To basically again disrupt them, get field position, etc. Italy then with 7, decent from them. Scotland 8, Ireland 8, and then England with 11, and then Wales at the bottom there with 12. So the 2 teams that were under pressure at times, certainly in their games as well. England kind of gave theirs away, I think, in batches as well. Onto ruck speed then. Wales with the we're looking at ruck speed, so rucks between 0 and 3 seconds, which is kind of the golden time that teams are looking for. Wales, the best there was 65.04, France 55.67, Scotland 52.99, Ireland 51.81, Italy with 47.14, and England there down to the bottom 42.35. So a couple of things to mention. First of all, Wales, brilliant ruck speed, but what did they do with it? And it's a positive and a negative for them, honestly, because the positive obviously is they're getting the ball away from the point of contact as quicker than any other team, which has got to be a benefit to you. And it's good ball security, good cleanouts, and that kind of stuff. But then you've got to look at also that they didn't do anything with it, and that's where the worrying thing, that's where the negative comes in, because if they're getting the ball away faster than anyone else, it means that like that French defense was less set than any other defense over the weekend. So there should have been lots of opportunities for Wales to exploit that. That you're basically getting the ball away quickly, and there should be guys who aren't quite in position. There should be gaps in the line. They couldn't find them. They couldn't, or if they saw them, they couldn't get the ball to where they were and exploit it. So, that's the worrying aspect to it. And then the other part of it as well is, I haven't looked at it because I don't get time to go over, games in minute detail the way I'd love to. But my suspicion is that they got that faster ruck speed by committing more players to the ruck than maybe other teams did, and therefore then you don't have as many options, in your attack, and maybe that other guy, extra guy that you put into ruck to secure that quick ball, could have been either part of another pod or a dummy runner or anything like that, in your back line, or create like an extra man for an overlap out wide, that kind of stuff as well. Next then, to look at, Ireland there on 51.81. That's decent ruck speed for them, given the fact you saw how aggressive England were at the breakdown, but Ireland still won that battle in terms of getting their quick ball compared to England. And then England down the bottom there, 42.35, is a bit of a worry, because both teams were competing at the breakdown, but Ireland not as much as England. Ireland prefer not to overcommit at the breakdown. Now they can find themselves in trouble with that, in opposition balls at time, especially if they don't have their pillars in place, and then oppositions go one out runners or sniping and that kind of stuff. But that didn't really happen against England. But for England, you've got that the fact that Ireland don't compete too much at the breakdown, compared to, say, the likes of maybe Scotland. So when England are playing Scotland next week, that ball potentially could be slower, unless they look at that and improve it. And that's what you expect coaches to do, right? So look at that and say, okay, we need faster ball if we're gonna play our game. And also it means that Marcus Smith, who I really rate as a 10, isn't seeing those pictures that maybe Wales would have been seeing against France in terms of a disorganized defence. Ireland would have been able to for the most part, have their defence stretched out across the field with few gaps there. And we saw, England really didn't, other than, I'm just thinking like the Ben Earl break was a big one in terms of finding a gap in the middle of the Irish defence for them. Yeah, so definitely improvements needed there for England. Next then, breakdown steals. One area that they don't need to improve on is this one. England top of the charts, there were 5. Italy with 3, France 2, Scotland 2, Wales 1, and Ireland 1. So England played the Curry twins, and both brilliant poachers, and they were able to steal more ball than anyone else. And in that period in the first half where they were on top, it certainly was to their benefit to be able to do that, but they weren't able to do it as much in the second half. And even when they did, they weren't getting the returns that they were in the first half. So, something maybe they need to look at then is, we've looked at that. We've looked at also like the meters made as well. And England were, well behind Ireland in that one. And maybe something you got to think of is, was it worth having 2 poachers in there, especially when you've got someone like Itoji in your team as well, who's a good poacher on his own as well, is maybe the balance of the back row wasn't quite there, and maybe they needed more carry meters, especially when you think Earl had that one break, and can you remember him having impact for any other points of the game other than that. For me, I don't now. Maybe there were, but it certainly didn't stick out. So that would be something I'd certainly be looking at, is maybe let's bring a 6, you know, and have a guy there who can, you know, carry hard into contact and that kind of stuff. Or maybe, you know, bring somebody else in at 8 instead of Earl, or, you know, they definitely have options there. But I've talked about it lots of times. One of the problems England have in the back row is they've got tons of options, and they're all kind of at similar levels, and it's just form kind of moves people around. But then you don't get a settled back row unit. You know, you look at Ireland, and generally, you know, it's going to be Van der Fleur 7, Doris 6 or 8, and then one other in there. You know, you could have Byrne in there, and that probably would have been the plan, other than Joe McCarthy was injured. So then they had Bird in there at 6 instead. You can have Peter O'Malley in there for an extra line-out option. But for the most part, you got the core of the back row is kind of settled. And for most of the other teams as well, other than Wales, which, you know, I think they use kind of the same method that they pick the lottery numbers for picking their team, honestly, in Gatland's second stint. But generally, you know, you know of the back row for the other teams, okay, it's probably these 3 guys, but it's at least these 2 guys, and then one other coming in or out. But England don't really have that. Next then, mauls. So France, you know, 9 mauls won. Next then, Scotland with 5, Italy 3, Ireland 3, England 3, and Wales 2. Wasn't a weekend really for mauls in terms of like dominance and stuff like that. You know, we didn't see too many pushover tries, or, you know, mauls jogging up the pitch or anything like that. But I think as the tournament goes on, and, you know, it gets tighter, and there's more kind of jeopardy with the fact that, you know, teams are still going for Grand Slams, or, you know, you have to win this game to stay in the title race, etc. We probably see mauls becoming more prevalent in terms of, you know, their importance to the outcomes of games. Next then, on to set piece, and this is the final you know, stats that we look at. So scrums won, Wales with 9, then France, Scotland, Italy, and Ireland all with 5, and England there with 3. So Wales' scrum going well in terms of just winning their scrums, but, you know, and I thought that front row as well, given like the French front row they were facing, I thought they did pretty well. So again, another positive for Wales. Then next, then a big positive for Ireland, and that is the fact that coming into the Six Nations, if you had asked you know, anyone who's familiar with how lineouts have been going for teams recently, which is the worst lineout in the Six Nations, would have been easily a majority vote for Ireland, because they were terrible during the autumn. They've had issues for the last couple of years as well. Most of the teams, bar Connacht, have had issues as well in the URC and in European games too. So, you know, would have been a big surprise for everyone that Ireland went like 23 out of 23. And yeah, Ireland at the top there, 23. Next, then we have France and England with 14, Scotland and Italy with 13, and Wales then down the bottom with 7. And Wales line out, you know, wasn't really a weapon for them at all. Probably, you know, the next best line out, you know, or looking at the numbers, you would say it's France and England, but I thought it was probably Scotland were the next best line out over the weekend. So it's going to be interesting next week with those 2 lineouts going head to head. Okay, now let's have a quick look at the table, and then we'll wrap this one up. So at the moment, you got France there out in front, you know, on 5 points. Scotland also 5, and Ireland 5. So they're the 3 teams at the minute. Until one of those or each of those teams lose a game, they're really the only teams that are running for the title. And it doesn't mean I'm dismissing the other teams. It's just that it's just obvious, right? If these teams keep on winning, then the three teams that lost this weekend cannot catch them, because somebody's going to end up with a grand slam. So I do still think that certainly England are in there in the mix for the title. Italy probably not, and Wales certainly not at this stage. But England on 1 point, Italy 0 points, and Wales on 0 points as well there. And obviously Wales at the bottom due to points difference. And Wales, the only team that obviously that didn't score a point in any capacity at the weekend as well. But yeah, that's our table. Obviously, after one game, it's hard to kind of take much of a reading from it, other than these are the teams that won, these are the teams that lost. And after next week, given that you've got France versus England, Scotland versus Ireland, and Italy versus Wales, it'll have much more significance who's where in the table at that stage. Okay, so that's the end of this one. In terms of statistics and stuff, I'm probably looking at the follow week to go have a proper deep dive into stats and go a little bit more in terms of, like, I've already worked out other stats, but this video again would have been way too long to go into those. But what do want to do a stats specific video, and also go into individual players and stuff like that once the Six Nations kind of got their act together and actually published those as well. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I would, I don't ask all that often, but I would really appreciate it if you could, like, share, post a comment, all that kind of stuff, because the YouTube algorithm gods or wherever love that kind of stuff, and it really does help the channel out immensely. But whether you do that or not, just thank you very much for taking your time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.